Hi everyone, welcome to this walkthrough. In this video, I'll be taking you through a retail sales analytics dashboard I built in Power BI, powered by a PostgreSQL backend. The data covers 500 transactions from January to December 2024 across 5 product categories, 4 regions, 10 stores, and 4 payment methods. This dashboard has 9 pages. I will go through each one, walk through every chart, and at the end of each page, I'll share recommendations for the business owner based on what data is telling us. Let's start with revenue and profitability. This page answers the core question every business owner wants answered. Where is the money coming from and how profitable is each part of the business? Starting with the regional performance, we can see West list with 1,26,973 taka in total revenue, followed by South, the North, and East coming in the last at 93,675 taka. That's about 26% behind the top region. Now this is where it gets interesting. Even though West leads in total revenue, South actually has the highest average transaction value at 1046 taka. What this tells us is that West's lead is coming from higher sales volume, while South's customers are spending more per visit on average. Looking at the category performance, grocery leads with 1064 taka average revenue per sale, while electronics sits at the bottom at 861 taka. I want to flag electronics here. It has the lowest average ticket size, and as we'll see in the later page, it also has the highest return rate. That combination makes it a category that needs serious attention. This donut chart shows how evenly revenue is split across the category. Toys at 21.8% at the top, down to electronics at 15.6%. The distribution is fairly balanced, which is actually a healthy sign of business. Finally, looking at the store level transaction quality, store A00F leads with 1,122 taka average per sale, while store A003 is the lowest at 854 taka. This gap tells us some stores are consistently closing higher value transactions than others. Based on everything this page showing, here are my suggestions for the business owner. First, each region is underperforming by a significant margin. I recommend a regional audit to understand whether it's a market size issue, fewer store location, or weaker marketing, and then run a targeted promotional campaign specifically in each. Second, South's high average transaction value is an opportunity. The region's customers are already willing to spend more, so it's worth testing premium product placement or upsell strategies here. Third, the balanced category revenue share is positive, but I'd keep a close eye on electronics. If its share keeps shrinking, that's an early warning sign worth addressing proactively. And finally, S008's consistent lead in average revenue per sale suggests it's doing something right, whether that's tough training, the product mix, or upselling habits. And I recommend studying that store approach and trying to replicate it at lower performing stores like S003. This page zooms in on which specific products and categories are actually driving their business. These 5 products P0040, P0038, P0047, P0033, and P0029 are the volume leaders, each selling between 69 and 85 units and generating between 13,800 taka and 17,000 taka individually. These are the backbone of these businesses' sales engine. Now here I need to flag a data quality issue. Every single category shows the exact same unit price of Taka 200.59. This is not a real business pattern. The raw data set itself came with the same value repeated across all the 500 rows in the unit price column. which means the issue originates at the data collection or export stage before the cleaning was done. I'm flagging this because identifying data quality is problems at the source is just as important as finding business insights. This pivot table shows how each category performs across all quarters, and the pattern is clear. Grocery leads in quarter 1, toys dominates quarter 2, and home goods lead both quarter 3 and quarter 4. There's a consistent seasonal rotation across the year. This chart is the classic 80-20 rule. Do a 20% products generate 80% of the revenue. In this business, it actually takes 33 out of 50 products, which is 66% to reach that 80% revenue mark. That's a wider spread than the traditional Pareto principle would predict. The top 5 products quantity are clearly the business's most critical SKUs. I recommend setting higher reorder threshold for those specifically and featuring them prominently in any promotions because a stock out of any of these would directly hurt revenue. The quarterly category rotation is a genuine seasonal signal. I recommend aligning the inventory purchasing and marketing campaigns to match it. Plan toy stock ahead of quarter 2 and build up home goods and inventory before quarter 3 hits. And on the Pareto finding, the wider revenue spread is actually a good thing. It means the business isn't exposed to the risk of one product underperforming. The implication is that broad catalog management matters here, not just focusing on a handful of hero products. This is one of the most important pages in the entire dashboard. It shows where the business is quietly losing money through product returns. Electronics has the highest return rate at 15.6%, which is nearly 3 times higher than toys at 5.8%, the lowest. The gap is significant and shouldn't be ignored. This chart ranks individual products by how much revenue was lost specifically because of returns. Rather than looking at categories broadly, this lets us point exactly which SKUs are driving the losses. West region loses the most to returns in absolute terms at 16,849 taka, followed by the south, east, and north. Since West also has the highest total revenue, some of this is expected, but the absolute number is still worth monitoring. Pulling it all together across the entire business, returns are costing 51,552 taka. That is 10.4% of gross revenue walking out of the door. Clothing and electronics together account for more than half of the total loss. The numbers on this page are serious. A 10.4% revenue leakage from this return is not acceptable in a healthy retail operation. My top recommendation here is to make electronic returns the number one priority. I would audit electronics suppliers so immediately for products defects and mismatched listings because a 15.6% returns rate it signals a quality or expectation problem that's costing the business in two ways: lost revenue and damaged customer trust. For clothing, the issue is almost certainly sizing and fit, which is a solvable problem through better size guide, more detailed product descriptions, or adjusting the returns policy for that category. Together, fixing just these two categories could realistically recover 25,000 taka or more annually, which is the single clearest ROI opportunity in this entire analysis. On the regional side, I'd investigate whether West's high absolute return loss is proportional to its sales volume or whether there's an handling of a fulfillment issue specific to that region. This page shifts the focus from products to people, understanding who our customers are and how they actually behave. This table ranks customers by their total confirmed spend. The top 5 customers each spend between 5,800 taka and 8,000 taka. That's 4 to 8 times what an average customer spends. a small group of customers is contributing a disproportionately large share of revenue. South leads with 5.22 items per transaction, while East trades at 4.49. East customers are not just spending less per transaction in total, they are also buying fewer items per visit. The scatter plot maps every customer by their total spending and their return rate and color codes them for four segments. The most important finding here, 151 out of 180 customer fall into the high spender, low returner category. Only 5 customers are high spender and high returner, and the business's most valuable customers are overwhelmingly its most reliable ones. This chart shows which payment method individual customers use most frequently, giving us a view into payment preferences at the customer level rather than just a aggregate. The customer data here tells a very clear story. This business has a strong, reliable customer base at the top end, and the recommendation follow from that. First, I build a formal VIP or loyalty tier targeting the top 10 to 50 high spending customers, given how concentrated their spending is. Even a modest retention investment, a budget discount, the early access to new products, a personal flow follow-up could generate significant returns. Second, its low basket size combined with its low total revenue from page 2 suggests a compounding problem. I test buy more states more bundle offers specifically in each to address both issues together. Third, the customer segmentation scatter is the strongest argument in the dashboard for launching a loyalty program. 151 of your 186 customers are both high spending and low risk, which is an unusually healthy foundation. The risk is rewarding a return of user is low here. This page is focused on the operational side, how each of 10 store location is performing relative to the others. The scatter plot positions each store by both its number of sales and its total revenue. Store S003 sits in the bottom left corner, the lowest order count and the lowest total revenue at 35,304 taka. That's the store struggling on both dimensions simultaneously. This bar chart confirms the transaction quality picture. H008 leads at 1,122 taka average revenue per sale, while H003 and H006 constantly sit at the bottom. Store H006 has the highest return rate at 18%, while H005 is the best performer at just 6.9%. That's a massive gap between the best and the worst store in this metric. This table breaks down each store's monthly revenue across the year. Store S010 is the most consistent performer. It shows growth in 7 out of 11 months, which is the highest consistency of any store in the dataset. The store data reveals a clear performance hierarchy, and recommendations are operational. For A003, this isn't just a pricing or margin problem, it's underperforming on volume and revenue, which means it needs a full turnaround plan addressing foot traffic, stocking levels, and local marketing, not just a push to upsell. For A006, the 18% return rate is the most urgent operational red flag in this page. Our audit is fulfillment process specifically looking at tracking quality, order picking accuracy, and how returns are being handled in store. Because something in that store operations is driving returns at nearly 3 times the rate of the best performing store. For L008, the approach should be the opposite. Study what it's doing right and document it as a paid playbook for the rest of the network. And H010's consistency makes it worth using a benchmark. I flag any store that shows three or more consecutive months or revenue decline as an early warning system. This page looks at how sales change over time across quarters, month by month, day by day. Quarter 2 is the strongest quarter at 1,28,378 taka in revenue, while quarter 1 is the weakest at 87,658 taka. That's a 40,000 taka gap between be- the best and the worst. This line chart tracks the month-over-month revenue growth rate through the year. The swings are dramatic, from plus 164% in April to minus 59% in March. These are large numbers, but it's important to put them in context. With only 500 transactions across 12 months, we are working with roughly 40 transactions per month. At that volume, a handful of high value or missing transactions can move the growth rate significantly. Breaking revenue down by day of the week, Tuesday is the highest revenue day at 74,820 taka, while Thursday is the lowest. The weekend doesn't dominate here, which is unusual compared to typical retail patterns. The quarter one weakness is the clearest and most actionable finding on this page. I would recommend playing promotional campaigns, clearance against, or loyalty rewards specifically timed for quarter one to smooth out cash flow and prevent inventory build-up heading into the slow season. On the monthly growth rate volatility, my recommendation is to not overreact to individual month swings at this data volume. This chart will become much more meaningful once two or more years of data are available. At this point, consistent seasonal drips will be clearly distinguishable from noise. On the weekend pattern, I would recommend validating this finding with more data before making stopping decision around it. But if Tuesday heavily holds over a longer period, it's worth shifting promotional focus and staff resources toward midweek rather than assuming a weekend rush. This page examines how customers pay and what their payment behavior means for the business. This combo chart overlays revenue by payment method with the return rate for each method. Net banking generates the most revenue and has a lowest return rate at 8.6%, while credit card has the return rate at 11.5%. The regional breakdown shows clear preferences. Net banking dominates in East, cash leads in North and West, and UPI leads in South. Payment behavior is not uniform across the business. Revenue is spread fairly evenly across all four methods, from net banking at 1,16,142 taka down to cash at 1,05,510 taka. No single payment method dominates the business's revenue. This line chart tracks the revenue growth for each payment method separately across the year. All four methods show broadly similar pattern of fluctuation, with no single method consistently pulling ahead of their behind. The main takeaway from this page is that the payment method landscape is stable and balanced, which means there is no urgent structural problem to fix here. That said, there are a few targeted improvements worth considering. Since payment method preferences vary clearly by region, I'd recommend making sure that checkout infrastructure in each region is optimized for its dominant method. Efficient cash handling processes in North and West, and strong UPI and QR code visibility in South. On credit cards, slightly higher return rate, it's here worth a light review of whether the checkout experience of our credit card users is attracting more impulsive purchases. Adjusting return policy messaging at the point of sale for that payment type could help marginally. And if the cost of offering digital payment incentives is low, nudging cash users towards UPI or net banking could reduce cash handling overhead and reconciliation over error over time. This final page shows the clean transaction level dataset that powers everything you have seen in this dashboard. 500 rows and 12 columns, fully structured and ready for analysis. It's worth spending a moment on where this data came from because the cleaning process was non-trivial. The raw export had transactions bundled in groups of 12 rows with column headers repeated with high. A common issue with exports from points of sale stream. To fix it, I used Power Query in Excel. I added index and modulo columns to identify each bundle and each row's position within it, then used records.form list to reconstruct each individual cell with their correct field names. The produced 5 parallel tables, which I combined with Excel's each tag function into the single master dataset of 500 rows. That was then exported as a CSV and imported into PostgreSQL using the copy command, where all 25 SQL queries were written and executed. This page exists deliberately in the dashboard for any business stakeholder or auditor reviewing their numbers. It's important to be able to trace every chart and every figure back to the transactional level data it came from. Transparency in the data source builds trust in the analysis. I've also used this page to flag the unit price data in issue we noted earlier. So it's the first thing visible when the next data refresh is discussed. To summarize, across these 9 pages of analysis, three priorities stand out above everything else. First, fix the unit price data issue. The field currently shows the same value across all 500 rows, which blocks any reliable pricing analysis from being done. Second, tackle returns in electronics and clothing. These two categories account for more than half of the 51,000 taka lost to returns annually. Fixing electronic quality and clothing fit issues is the single clearest, most measurable ROI opportunity in this entire project. And third, build a loyalty program around the top customers identified in the customer's behavior page. 151 out of 186 customers are high spending and low return, which is an unusually strong foundation. This is the cheapest growth lever available, and the data strongly supports investing in it. Thank you for watching.